I'm convening the regular City Commission meeting of August 21st, 2013. Would you please all join me in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have an unbelievably short agenda today. This is unusual. We have an opportunity here for the ceremonies and see, save, celebrate historic photo contest winners. Christina, do you want to come up and talk to our the program that we had and the winners that we have? And you're being joined by?
Karen Morey.
In what capacity?
From the Clackamas County Historical Society, the co-sponsor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Neely. I wanted to, tonight is an exciting time. If you remember in the May Preservation Month, we had our second annual photo contest, and we're here tonight to celebrate the three winners. The photos will be framed and will be up on display at the Clackamas County Historical Society, 211 Tumwater.
Yes.
This summer, and we have checks to give out to our winners. Two winners are here tonight.
Oh, good.
And do you want to? Cool. I guess I can do. You also find on your dais we have copies of the photos as well as some of the honorable mention. And to start off, we have the winner of the adult category was Tom Zerald. It's a view of McLaughlin Promenade. It's a beautiful photo of a fall day on the promenade. The winner of the teen category was Erica Zeitzelberger of a barbershop, and our own Gretchen Pauley won the child category, youth, for the Kenema Bluff. It was a beautiful photo in the back. So if I'd like to have the winners come up, and Mayor Neely.
While we're doing that,
Sure.
is it possible to just pass this among the audience if we don't have it on the
We
screen?
do. There's actually copies of this on the back by the agenda.
Very good.
And we're going to have them hold them so the audience can actually see them.
Yes, thank you.
Right side up.
Main Street,
And you must
facing
Thank you.
Railroad.
Yes. Go take a picture. We're the proud
Okay.
mom.
I guess, I don't know.
This is a great event, and we got these three winners of the photo contest. Is this going to be, I hope, an ongoing event? What is it going to be an annual event? So this is tremendous. I want to congratulate you and yourself. Oh, yeah, You didn't buy anybody's influence, did you?
No.
Just to mention, it's independent, but Gretchen Pauley is the daughter of one of our commissioners. So, she moved. Congratulations to you all.
Okay,
You can do one, and I can do one. And
Wait, is that another?
Christina
Is that another?
Doug,
price
is that
for something
another?
else?
Mayor? Mayor?
Yes.
Is that another one out there?
Oh, really good. So, Christina, Christina, we have three envelopes. We're going to have three people present them. Okay.
Go, Karen, go.
And is it Tom Seahel? Zerfeld. Zerfeld. Congratulations to you. You're the, no, you get to present one now.
Erica Zeitzelberger for teen.
The reason I'm having this done, congratulations to you, and we're really pleased. The reason I'm having it individually done is because Karen Morey was trying to keep me from passing on to anybody, and she wanted to do it all by herself. So I thought this was a rather democratic way of doing it. Karen, would you please make the presentation?
And Gretchen. There
Thank you very much. Come on, Karen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very gracious to you all.
And I'll take the pictures because these are going to be at the museum.
Very Halloween.
We're going to have the pictures on display down at the Museum of the Arts and Territory.
Okay. With that, we go into our period of citizen comments. Anybody wishing to speak on any item that's not on the agenda, if you sign up to do so, we limit the...
Excuse me, Mayor, there were two people that would wanted to speak to item 3A.
3A. Oh, please come
Elaine.
forward.
Elaine Manley and Sheila Hesselt.
Yes, come forward. And you're speaking to the actual recognition that we did here. Is that right?
No.
So this is on a different. This is on an agenda. It's something we do not have on the agenda.
Right.
Is that right? Okay, very good.
I misunderstood
Yeah, that's fine.
that. Okay.
And you well, oh, my goodness. That's so nice. Thank you.
That is very cool. Nice.
That's great. And this is being presented to the mayor of Oregon City, right?
Wow, that's neat.
My name is Elaine Manley, and this is my dear friend Zona Smith, and she created a pattern for our beautiful Oregon City logo to simply, out of the generosity of her heart, to give to my husband and I to hang in our home. And I'm very
Oh, that's
Very
beautiful.
nice. Very nice.
Would you pose for a photograph as well? I mean, we've got a camera here. Sure. Yeah, let's
Yes,
come up there and
that's a
stand with
great
you. Sure.
idea. It's a great idea.
Are you going to make the pattern available for sale?
Are you interested in making more?
It's beautiful.
Maybe we all want to purchase one.
Yeah, can you go?
I have not thought of that.
Ah, you
I
might.
just created this year for my neighbors, and I entered it in the Clackamas County Fair, and I did get a blue ribbon on it.
Congratulations. That's great.
That's as far as I came with it.
Well, there you go. That's
Could you
awesome.
introduce yourself again, even though we have it on the record?
Yes. My name is Zona Smith.
Very good. That's great. And then
That
the
is
recipient.
wonderful.
My name is Elaine Manley.
Thank you. That is a gorgeous piece of work.
It is.
Thank you so much for this particular effort. And
The mayor might want to hold it up.
I will.
You may not give it back.
After the comment, may I feel guilty?
You may not get it back, huh?
That's wonderful.
That is wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing.
That's great.
Thank you.
Wow, that's cool. Bye, Elaine.
Yeah, yeah.
That was wonderful. Other than these two ladies, I don't see anybody else that's signed up for the agenda, so we'll go on to our regular...
Excuse me, Mayor, I'm sorry. Yes, there are.
Oh, excuse me. Doris Enderlin, I think you just came up on my screen. Please come forward. Go ahead and introduce yourself and whether or not you live in Oregon City.
I am.
On the
I
phone.
sit-
Yes,
can I sit here?
either place.
I haven't been in here before.
Well, welcome.
You're now on TV, too.
I'm Doris Enderlin on Boynton Street in Oregon City, and we're here to address the repair of the sidewalks in our neighborhood.
Does this have to do with trees?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
It has to do with trees, and my question is, who owns the sidewalk?
Can I give that to the attorney, actually?
I'll have to look at it, but my assumption, and John can help me with this, is that this is an easement over people's property along with the street, and the property owner has the responsibility for maintenance. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's in the public right-of-way, which many people associate with public property, but it's a responsibility of the property
Okay,
owner.
if we own the sidewalk and you people own the trees, correct? The city owns the trees.
No, I
Trees
think,
and an easement as well.
yeah, it's within that same easement.
That's not according to some of the written papers that we have. We have a paper that says the city owns the tree and the area that it's planted in.
I believe the city has an easement. I'll be glad to look at whatever papers you have.
Okay.
You shouldn't bring this up and catch us cold. If you give that to the city manager, I'll have a look at it. and
But
I'll
we
report.
got caught cold, and we have a letter that says you have to do this, this, and this within a certain length of time.
Yeah.
So
And so we're here to see what is it, who owns what, and why do we have to do what we have to do?
John Lewis is our Public Works Director, and I think this has to do with trees that are identified as appropriate street trees at one point. And go ahead.
Right, so you've worked with some of my staff. I know you've come in to talk to them about the notice that you got. So you got a notice from our Code Enforcement Division about a raised sidewalk panel.
I didn't, no,
You didn't.
I didn't.
There's
I've
two
already
other people.
repaired mine.
Ma'am, why don't you
So-
come up as well?
So somebody got, otherwise you're here for that. That's the
Yes.
reason you're here for, is a raised panel.
Okay.
That's right.
We're all here for the same thing.
Okay.
The
So
letter.
this is a standard complaint that we've heard in the past, but we get both sides of this pretty regularly, where there's a trip hazard on a public sidewalk, that it's a frontage sidewalk as well, which is the responsibility of the property owner, as well as the street trees are responsibility of the property owners. And so when they're damaged like that and become a hazard, usually that's always complaint driven. The city doesn't necessarily run out looking for those, but when we get a complaint in a neighborhood, they'll go out and they'll document those that are trip hazards, and then they'll send out notices of a requirement to correct those problems.
But if our paperwork says that you own the tree and you own the space that it's marked, that it's planted in,
It's public right of way, but as the city attorney just acknowledged, that's right of way. If we ever vacate that right of way for public use, it goes back to the property owner. But those trees and the sidewalk are the responsibility. They're in the public right of way, but they're the responsibility of the property owner. So they're a public facility, and the street trees are I suppose a public asset, but they're
okay.
but
So
they're
if
the
we own,
responsibility
if we
of the
own the
property.
tree and we own the sidewalk, why do we have to pay a permit to do anything with it?
What I understand is we've waived the tree planting permitting, so that there's
Waived
not a
it
charge for
completely?
Yes, but the sidewalk piece is, we give a discount on those permits, but we still have to do inspections. We usually have to meet with the property owner to, talk to them about where the replacement limits are and so forth. So we do a fair amount of effort associated with that, and that's what part of that permit fee
Now,
pays for.
when we replaced ours, they said we had to hire a professional cement man to come in and lay the sidewalk. Is that required?
Well, if you have the ability to do that on your own, and you can do it to our standards, a private property owner can take care of their own sidewalk damage. But if you don't have that ability, then we suggest you hire a competent
How do we know what your
contractor.
standards are?
They're published, and we share those with you at the time of the permit. That's another reason for the permit, is we give you all those standards.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question.
Please give your name,
Okay.
and obviously you live in Oregon City too, but please give your
Two
name.
houses down from her. Judy Coleman, I live on Boynton Street as well. And my letter says that there's a tripping hazard on my property. Well, my sidewalk is flat. So I would challenge
Okay.
that there's a difficulty with my particular sidewalk.
Okay.
At, a quarter of an inch, I mean, anyway,
And do they have your address correct on the?
yes, they do.
Okay. Well, I would suggest go ahead and pass that back to our Public Works Director, and he can check that out and see if the property was misidentified or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be great. So if my sidewalk indeed is not at risk, do I have to remove the tree?
You don't have to remove this tree if the sidewalk is raised. You can leave the tree. That's
My sidewalk isn't raised.
One thing you might want to, and I don't know who you check it with, if the tree there could have a potential effect on the sidewalk, and that's a problem we've seen during a certain development period where trees were planted by the developer from a list I believe that we provided, but it turned out they damaged the sidewalks. You might want to check to see if that species of tree has been a problem someplace else. You might want to replace it so it doesn't happen in the future.
I can meet with them out. and get their
I think that's the best way to do it.
Okay, another question then. Along that line, if the tree was approved by the city and now it's a problem, why am I responsible for the replacement of it?
That's been
The city approved it.
I'd be happy to share that outside.
Why don't you speak? Our public works director is a person that is responsible for those activities, and he'll be happy to speak to you outside if that's okay.
Sure.
If there's something different that you want to address in the back besides this particular issue, please come forward. But we'll have the public works director come on forward if you want to.
Mayor, if I could say one thing.
Yeah.
Because the questions from these ladies there is one common theme I see, which is ownership versus an easement.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the critical thing, and it's very confusing. I'm a lawyer, and it's even confusing for me sometimes. But what the city has is an easement there, essentially, so that it's still your property all the way out to the center of the street.
Mm-hmm.
And what the city has is a dedicated right-of-way. Now, the city takes responsibility for everything forward of the curb, and everything behind the curb is essentially the property owner's responsibility because it's still the property owner's property. We are just basically have an easement on it for the length of time. There are times when cities abandon streets, and when they do that, there's a center line, and typically that's the center line that's divided, and each lot gets half the street, basically, all the way from the sidewalk all the way out. So
Thank you. Would you define easement for me? What does that exactly mean?
it's a legal term that means basically we have a right to use it, an exclusive right to use that area. So you usually, typically you cannot close off an easement or restrict movements in there. So we have a right to regulate what happens inside the right-of-way, even though it's technically still your property.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Come forward, and again, your name and whether you live in Oregon City, which I presume you do.
My name's Sherry Rowe, and I do live in Oregon City on Boynton Street. And this is somewhat on the same subject where you said if they had something different. But we have a letter here that says the planter strip as well as the street tree within the planter strip is owned by the city. And thus removal of a street tree is subject to approval by the city for compliance with the adopted standards in the Oregon City Municipal Code.
It's a bad letter.
That's what it says.
Yeah,
And
That's what they
the
all
whole
say,
thing with
probably.
us is, when I bought this house, it's been 20 years ago, we had no say-so. I guess it was an agricultural committee that planted the trees. I would think at that time they should have had permits that they would have had to do to put those trees in. If these are the wrong types of trees, which I believe Chuck Carter is his name, or Chuck Carter spoke with me the other day, said those were not the correct kind of trees to be put in there. They weren't planted properly. So I'm wondering, where was the permit and where was the inspection after the permit was authorized for these trees to be done properly? We're getting in a position where we have to replace a sidewalk, and in our thinking, the sidewalk's being replaced by a tree that the city owns and has uprooted our sidewalk. So if you hit me in your car, you would be liable. The tree is the city's tree has uprooted our sidewalk, and we're having to replace that. That does not seem right or fair in my eyes.
That was incorrectly written.
Well, it doesn't, I don't know what to say, but we got it, that's what it says. And my CCRs too, from when I first bought our house, it looks like the liability and everything from where this tree was planted has been completely, there's no recourse to the agricultural committee or anybody who put these trees there. So what we're wanting to find out, why is it fair that we have to pay the cost of either the sidewalk or the tree? Right now in my yard, if I was to leave the tree and just replace the sidewalk, it's still going to uproot the
That's right.
sidewalk again.
Yes, it is.
So we have to take the tree out. And like you said, you waived the permit, which is great, but it's still us having to pay to have the tree removed and possibly planting another tree, which is money. A lot of the people in my area, some that are here, are in very fixed incomes and don't have the money and resources to pay for that. And I'm basically, this letter is what really, I just, does the city own the ease? They do. It's a play on words as far as I'm concerned. We own that property, but we can't do anything with it because the city owns it too. And it's, I don't know. I just want to kind of go in support for the rest of the neighborhood and our
Sure, I appreciate
community
it.
and street there, because it's not a fair situation, or I don't see the rightness in us having to take care of these problems. So thank you.
Okay.
So
Yes.
I'll step outside and address those as best I can. I would say that, it sounds like that letter, maybe we need to adjust that. That comes out of the Code Enforcement and Police Department, but we'll work with them to see if we can't make that more clear. I would say that we've had a lot of code enforcement on this particular issue lately. What I hear is while people are frustrated with them, in the end they get the permit and they understand when we kind of describe the concern to them. So we'll work to do that with you as well. But we've had a lot of these since March. I think I pulled the number. Let me describe it real quick. Over 131 people notified, and we've had 73 of those come in and actually get permits and do the work. So there is, some uncertainty about why they have to do that. But usually, once we kind of explain that to them, and they get the fact that it's a community asset, just that each property owner has some responsibility for that. So we try to address those as best we can. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, come forward. Identify yourself also by name, if you would.
Good evening, Mayor and City Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Irene Hill, and I also
Could you sit down and speak into the, repeat your name if you would?
My name is Irene Toth, and I also live on Boynton, and all of us received the same letter on this past Saturday. And when I purchased my home 9 years ago, I never received any CC&Rs or anything to notify me of my rights or responsibilities. And when I got this letter, it took me by surprise because, as the others indicated, it seems like the trees and the sidewalk is the city's, but when there's a problem, all of a sudden, it's our responsibility. I myself live on Social Security disability, which is very limited. When Chuck came out the other day and informed me that 2 slabs have to be broken up, the tree has to be removed, my question is that where were the inspectors at the time? Because I called a horticulturist and was told that the reason that all these roots are growing above the ground is that they weren't planted deep enough. Now, where were the inspectors at that time? Chuck told me at that time, there were no enforcement. I can't believe that. Even 50 years ago, there were inspectors for water, plumbing, electricity, building the homes to specifications. Where were the inspectors to make sure those trees weren't planted deep enough? Because all of a sudden, everywhere I walk in that subdivision with my dog every day, I see the roots like 2-3 inches above ground. The slabs are completely up above and broken. Why do the homeowners who have very, very limited income, that whole street are all retirees and people who live on disability like myself, and I do all the major repairs on my home and my property to make it look as beautiful. I'm the only one who keeps the water drainage clean from leaves, because the city doesn't come out often enough to clear those drainages, and therefore the water can't get down when it's heavily raining. Also, when I walk my dog, I see trees that are hanging on the sidewalk that I have to go in the middle of the street because the city does not maintain trimming the trees. Why is that? What do our taxes go to then? I have no children that go to school, and if the homeowners are responsible for maintaining the beautification of that city or that state, I don't know where our tax money is going to then. We can't afford to break up, as Chuck told me that mine, it could be quite expensive. I said, I don't have the funds for that. I live month to month on the income I get, and sometimes my daughter helps me with the groceries. Where am I going to get the money? He says, then we'll take you to court, and there's going to be a judgment. Well, I came here because I'm ill and I wanted to, pass away in a beautiful state. I love Oregon and I love the people I live around. It's beautiful, and I don't need this stress nor any other, and it seems like every homeowner on my street, Boynton, got the same letter that someone complained about a trip hazard. I don't think anyone complained about a trip hazard. I think the inspector goes out every day and looks for problems and then sends these letters out. That's not right. This is the first time public speaking for me, and I'm very nervous, but I feel so strongly because I figure it's the city's responsibility. And I told Chuck that I came from California and they maintain the city, and everyone's telling me, oh, that's why California's bankrupt. Well, tell me one state that doesn't state that they're bankrupt. All of them say that they're bankrupt and have no money. But they don't require the Californian homeowners to pay for the city's responsibility. The trees, the sidewalk should belong to the city, and I cut down a maple tree a couple years ago and almost took half my finger off with it, and I was told I have to replace the tree. I did replace it, but they even tell you what type of tree to replace it with, and it's the same tree that makes all those problems that we're having right now.
And I've got a potential solution, and I'll just suggest, because I think that these letters came from code enforcement, which is part of the police department. That's correct. For the first time public speaking, I think you're doing fantastic.
She is.
But why don't you, I think what might really work is for me to check with code enforcement, find out what happened, get some more information about the letter, and then if I can get a contact name for one or two of you, we'll collect a bunch of information. We can meet. We can either come out to your neighborhood, kind of relook at things, see what happened, communicate to you what happened, or we could meet at the police department. Whatever works, and then kind of move forward from there once we get a better idea of, I had no idea any letters went out, and then maybe that would be a good way, and then we could move from there. That's a suggestion.
But they only give us until November the 23rd.
I'm sure.
We're not made of money, and most of us do not have a savings account that has $50,000 for emergencies like this.
And I think he can discuss that with you too.
I'll have you an answer inside of a week.
And Chuck also mentioned that the city didn't plant the trees, but the developers did. I said, well, why don't you go after the developers? He said, we don't know where they are. Well, I don't think that's true. I'm sure they can find the developers, and they're the ones that's responsible for not planting it properly.
Thank you. That was
You're
great.
very welcome.
You
Thank
did
you
very
for
well.
listening to me.
You did very well. Thank you.
And thank you for coming out.
One more.
Nancy, are there more on this topic? Okay.
But you can come forward. It's all right. Your name again?
Sheila Heesh, Oregon City, Boynton Street.
Sheila
Heesh.
Heesh. Thank you.
And I want to thank Irene because I think she really hit everything we're concerned about. And I don't want to get redundant because we do understand why were the trees planted when they knew they were going to do this, and we have to, But I have another issue besides that. I live on a corner lot, okay? So what they're telling me, which I think is really not fair at all, is that I'm responsible also, not just in front of my house, but all the way up Central Point. And I think you know how big those trees are. And the sidewalk is, pretty bad. But it's not like a little thing in front of your house with a tree. If you go from Boynton up to the next street, they're humongous. And the sidewalk's a complete disaster. So they're telling me that I'm responsible for that, and I think I have to say that's not fair. And what would be my answer for that?
Should be only the sidewalk adjacent to your property.
Well, she's got a corner lot, though.
Well, what it is like I have...
I understand what she's saying.
Right. Boynton Street's here, Central Point's
Right.
here. I have a fence, trees, a sidewalk, and those trees by the street.
Right.
And they're huge. They're not little trees. And so where does that put me? They were planted, that used to be a homestead, and some of those trees are still there.
They're
from
original
then.
trees, yeah.
So I guess I need to know where I fit into this as well, because the front of my house doesn't seem to have a problem. So 'cause I agree with them, it's still very unfair, but I know you'll look into it. So what about that? They're telling me that I'm responsible for that, and that doesn't make sense.
I'd be happy to talk through that if
Okay.
you want to. Yeah, I can
Okay.
Step out.
All right, and just one more time, I want to say, why is it that trees were planted, knowing that they were going to take our sidewalks and our yards up with their roots, and nobody at the time, somebody should have been there watching, and they didn't, and it isn't fair. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Sheila.
Thank you.
Different name on there.
Well, that's what I get for suggesting it might be a short meeting.
Well, exactly.
Well, the staff was just reminding me that years and years ago, the city didn't regulate trees in any fashion.
Right.
Didn't have any
Right.
programs, didn't have a recommended tree species
No.
list.
Yeah.
And things just happened, and now
Yep.
all of us, including these folks, have to live with the
And I
results.
think many of the subdivisions went in when the requirements on the street trees were there, and apparently
Yeah.
their
And
their
they're-
concern is legitimate.
We gotta look at them piece by piece.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
May I ask a question? The city is responsible, what department of the city is responsible for the right-of-way between the lawn or the edge of the property owner and the curb? And then who's responsible from the curb to the middle of the street? Is it all the same?
Public Works manages the right-of-way.
Okay.
The enforcement is managed by the police department.
Which is complaint driven.
Yes.
With that, we're going to come into a public hearing. I'll look a bit for the advice of council. We have an appeal of the Historic Review Board's approval of 3 new single-family residences on 9th and Van Buren Streets in the McLaughlin Conservation District. My understanding, there's been some kind of agreement that's occurred, and we may not have to open a public hearing at all. Is that right?
We'll need to open it up.
We'll still do it. We'll still have to do it. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Neal. You just don't get the pleasure of a 25-page PowerPoint from me this evening.
Could you load that 25?
What we have tonight is Appeal 13-2, which is the appeal of a Historic Review Board decision for HR 1303, which is for 3 new homes in the McLaughlin Conservation District. And the appellant, McLaughlin Neighborhood Association, has written suggested revised conditions of approval that you'll find Exhibit 1 in your packet. And they've been working with the appellant, and both the appellant and the applicant support the revised conditions. I will just very briefly explain what they are. Both the appellant and the applicant are here this evening if they wish to speak or you wish to ask any questions. And after that, staff recommends that you vote to deny AP 13-2, the appeal of the Historic Review Board's approval of HR 1303, and uphold the appeal with the revised conditions attached in Exhibit 1. So deny the appeal, uphold the approval with the revised conditions. Briefly, the 2 conditions that have been added to Exhibit 1 ask that the rear breezeway that connects the rear porch to the garage be removed, and that the applicant install a window on the garage of vernacular A, which was previously required on the bungalow A and bungalow B. So in this case, the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association is asking for the same windows to be in all 3 of the garages. And there's some additional findings for the condition of approval number 7G that the Historic Review Board required, which asked the applicant, this was at their hearing, which asked the applicant to move the cross-gabled addition of the vernacular back 5 further feet. So that was already conditioned by the Historic Review Board, but the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association wants the City Commission to affirmatively agree with the Historic Review Board's findings on that. And with that, I'm open for any questions the board might have, and I know that Mr. Sullivan has a point of order. No? Okay.
First of all, let me ask you, has anybody had any ex-party contacts on this matter?
No.
Everybody's saying no. Anybody have an interest that would cause them not to hear this fairly? Everybody's shaking their head no. All right. I would suggest that if you invite people to testify on the revisions to the conditions, the only thing I have heartburn over, and it's not really over anything that's being done here, is that you're really sticking a finding under 7G, where it more appropriately belongs in the findings in the order. I'm not going to have heartburn over it. There is a process that the HRB has, which I don't particularly agree with, which would normally require a staff report going through all of the required standards and showing whether they're met or not. You can see in the order that the HRB has here is just a yes. And you saw appropriately that the Neighborhood Association appealed that and was much more specific in the things that it didn't find was met. Now, if there's anybody else to take this up to LUBA, I'd have a lot more heartburn over this. I don't like having the findings stuck in the middle of the conditions. I won't die over it, nor will you. More appropriately, it belongs as part of the narrative part of the order. See where you want to be at the end of the day, and we can talk about it and draft a final order.
Normally, we go ahead.
Oh, I'm saying, I forgot one extra point of this. The McLaughlin Neighborhood Association, in their appeal, did ask that the City Commission make a comment on the appropriateness of breezeways on garages. And what I asked is that actually we invite the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association to come back to the Historic Review Board at a work session in the fall, so this can be talked about. And so that is one of my suggestions. Is
I was going to ask that.
It goes back, and then we can go through a full process and have it as a notice meeting, and we can have that discussion.
Great.
And staff supports that recommendation as well.
Good. Normally, we take the applicant and then I believe the appellant. We can invite maybe both of them up at the same time and have the applicant speak first, and then have the appellant speak afterwards. You may have the same speech. Yeah, okay.
My name is Bill Heinz, Mountain Ridge Homes. I think you need my address, P.O. Box 102, Boring, Oregon. Sure. We've come to an agreement. There are just a couple of minor issues that made this more historical house. Everything that they asked for was very agreeable on my part, so just wanted to state that and let everybody know that we're in agreement.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Does the appellant want to come forward then?
Don't forget to say your name.
I was about to before I was interrupted. Damon Mabey, City of Oregon City, and I would like to just be on the record to say that in our meeting with the developer, he was an excellent person to work with. It was unfortunate that with timing we couldn't meet before the HRB. Some of this might have got resolved. A couple of the issues that we fixed, the window and the math. Well, the window thing I think just fell out. It was in the general discussion, but it just didn't make it in there. And I guess the comment that was made about the findings, I agree it's a finding and probably should be there. The big reason why that was part of our appeal was that there was a discussion about massing, a discussion about why that should be moved, but then the written record was blank. And it just seemed very clear to us that if you're going to require a developer to move a part of their building at least 5 feet, there should be some justification for why that has happened, a finding, a seismic, whatever, whatever it may be. And it was just, and we're going to tell you to move your building 5 feet. And then the other issue about the breezeways, that was completely contra to the regulations. It says
McLaughlin Conservation District Design Guidelines.
In summary, from my point, Denise has the more specifics, but in summary, a large portion of our appeal was that it really seemed like the HRB and or staff or some combination was getting too casual with quasi-judicial findings that affect the historic neighborhood for the next millennia. So we wanted to make things get back on track, and so the next developer and the next developer will know why things happened.
I have a question. So it says no breezeways in the McLaughlin Conservation District, but yet that wasn't translated over to the
not exactly.
Technically, it says they will be detached.
The garages, the design guidelines that we spent many hours working on, basically that was one of the issues that we debated with our consultants and staff, and we talked about. And it was pretty clear from the way the design guidelines were adopted that garages were meant to be detached. And we had a proposal come in with 3 attached, regardless of how it connected to the house. So that was specifically one of our concerns. The design guidelines said X. The board made a decision that we didn't feel was appropriate, and no reasons as to why. Well, you can't just say, well, because you can't see it, we should allow it, even though the standards say, no, we are saying we don't want this. So that was part of where we were coming from. And then, of course, there's the next step, which, okay, you have a breezeway, and then, oh, gee, maybe we need to put a wall here, and then you add something else to keep the rain off, and the next thing you know, it's an enclosed structure. Right. And we don't have any way to go back and say, wait a minute, that's not what, And we've had hearings where someone has come in and said, well, so-and-so did it, now why can't I do it? So we want to make sure that if there are changes that is specific to that application and that there are reasons why, so that we don't have any precedents being set if for some reason that is changed. So we don't have an issue with having a discussion about that with the board, but we know that there was another neighborhood association that had the same issue.
The last appeal, had the same issue.
So the other thing, Denise McGriff, McLaughlin Neighborhood Association, I think the thing that we also wanted to emphasize is that doing historic review applications leaves a lot of room for some interpretation. And I think our city attorney aptly made the point that is our point. We would like to see the staff reports come out with the usual, and actually our staff did a very good job of outlining for the board, here's where I need you to make findings. Those did not get translated, whatever those were, into the conditions. We'd like to see more specificity with the decisions, that there are findings that support the conditions. You have the finding, and then you have conditions that back that up, and we're not really seeing that. And we do trust our staff. We work with her all the time, but let's just say she gets hit by a bus tomorrow. Who's going to understand what the reasoning behind these things were? You know,
without going
Depends
back.
what kind of injury it was. But
we don't want her to get hit by a bus, but I'm just saying some staff can change.
Yes.
And then we have a record that is incomplete. And I think if our city attorney has his way, and I hope that he does, we want to see future applications and decisions from the board, from the Historic Review Board, come out with a set of findings that have the conditions. It will be very clear, as Damon said, to everyone. And I had heartburn about the way it was done here, but we were really specific. We said, great, we understand why you wanted the developer to move it back. But the condition as it was originally written didn't support.
It looked arbitrary.
It's like, well, fine. Well, what happened to the historic Howell House next door? That's what we were concerned about. How is this house going to impact that? And what is the impact? The condition can mitigate that, but that's not what it said. And so you have to go by the written record. And I think when we go before, we're in a work session at some future point with the board, we want to say that to them. Please, make your findings so that the staff can write them up. You have your findings and you have your conditions. That's the way it's supposed to work. And that's not what has been happening.
But I guess to echo the attorney's concern about whether or not we're going to go to LUBA because the finding's in the wrong spot, no. The record's good as it is now. We're the only party withstanding, so you don't need to be rewriting the findings. Just adopt what's been found, and then we'll make it right the next time. So don't make this any more complicated than it needs to be.
You would prefer to have the finding and then the condition. Yeah, and I think that can be that's just computer and you change it around. Yeah. So that's pretty easy.
The words are all still there.
Yeah.
We can have a discussion about how we want to proceed on that.
Once you finish.
So we just wanted you to understand where we were coming from, and that we just want more specificity. It's difficult for the layperson, as you know, both of us are students of land use, so we sort of get it, but we do study up ourselves, and we want to make sure that we're doing things correctly, and we want to make sure that when things come to you, that you are afforded the same benefit of having findings and conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next developer knows what he can
Exactly.
and can't expect.
Exactly.
So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That will open the public hearing.
Or close the public hearing.
Well, we haven't had it yet. Have we?
That was it.
That was it.
Okay, well, somebody else can speak to it, isn't there?
If anybody else wants to.
That's what I was saying. Yeah. Well, he might want to speak to it. Marie might want to say something. I don't know. Seeing nobody responding to public hearing, we'll close the public hearing. Now we can have discussion.
I was just going to say, if the applicant wants to rebut.
Yes.
Look, here's where you are. You could adopt this as written. Nobody's going to appeal it. It's just sloppy, and that's fine. You can just say, next time, change it. Or you could put an asterisk after 7G and put the material at the bottom and say the city finds that requiring, et cetera. All right? And then the second sentence, the city also finds that even though the height, that would probably be okay too.
I guess my preference would be to have it come back in a form that we feel is appropriate.
It's just that it's going to take 2 more weeks. And
Is that a problem for you in terms of your schedule?
I would like to get started as quickly as possible.
You would.
It's
Okay.
nice weather.
so, I mean, you could hold your nose and just adopt it as
Yeah.
requested.
Do you want to, for our benefit, restate, because there's a couple things you suggested in the motion, and
As Christina's already indicated, the motion will be that the commission deny the appeal, but in doing so, adopt the revised conditions presented by the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association as the conditions of approval, substituting those adopted by the Historic Review Board.
So moved.
Second.
it's been moved by Commissioner Munn, seconded by Commissioner Smith. Vote, please. It was unanimous vote. Proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It makes it so much easier when people can get together and work it out.
Yeah.
That's always been our goal.
Yes, I know.
And I think it's good when these things come up, because then we can say, okay, for next time, let's get this clarified and standardized so we can have it be consistent. Thank you.
I failed to adopt the agenda. Did anybody? Is there anything anybody wants to have pulled from the consent agenda?
Move to approve consent agenda.
Moved by Commissioner Munn,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Pauling. Vote, please. I guess we didn't have to do it, but yeah, we have to do it this way.
On mine, I have the appeal still on there.
Oh, mine is too.
I apologize.
Thanks for paying
Okay.
attention.
I just wanted to know what I was voting on.
Oh,
So
we
it
just
was
voted
moved
for that
by
again.
Commissioner Mum and seconded by Commissioner.
And that is for item. That's for the consent agenda.
I just
No matter what it says up there.
Can you touch your screens, Rocky Smith and Kath?
Did you
To do
input
what?
again?
Do what?
Input again.
Just put
Okay.
yes.
It hasn't gone back for
Yeah,
us
it's
to be able
still
to do it.
yeah.
Still, we're
Let's
stuck.
just do a regular
Yeah,
vote.
yeah.
Commissioner Roth.
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay, then I'll just do it this way.
You want to have the motion again? Or not?
I got it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
No, that's still the appeal, but
Still-
I will fix that later.
Okay.
So it was a unanimous vote for the consent agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The
We're
city
too fast
manager's
tonight.
City manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to remind the commission that the city has contracted with Clackamas Community College to provide ethics training for city staff and all of our elected folks in September. Specifically, the training session for the executive team, along with each elected official, will be held during the September 10th commission work session. We started our first ethics training with ICMA about not quite 3 years ago, and this is something that we feel strongly we need to do every couple of years. And since that first round of ethics training, that really, it started with our commission, but it went through the whole organization. We've done a number of things that the commission may not remember or be aware of, but among those are making sure that ethics is at the forefront in our recruitment materials that we recruit for new employees. We also do ethics training and have them sign a statement of ethics. It's a policy that we developed when they come on with the city as employees. And then we also make sure that we weave into the interview questions for our hiring process questions about that, because we know that from experience and even really recent experience in other jurisdictions that ethics are just something you have to continually practice and train for. And even when you do, people are human and they do make mistakes. But we think it's really important to try to develop an ethical culture at the city, and we want to be known for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we spend time on it, and it'll be great to have Clackamas. This will be the first time the community college has done the training for us. It's a new program for them, so we're kind of anxious to have them do it, and it'll be a little bit different than the ICMA version, but we're looking forward to that on September 10th. Next, I'm really proud of this. Our finance department has received their second consecutive award from the Government Finance Officers Association it's a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting. The certificate is the highest form of recognition a government finance agency can receive, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment for the city and its management. And it's our second year in a row, and thank you, Wyatt. Congratulations. Now, Wyatt's next hurdle is to get the GFOA award for budget presentation, which is a little bit higher calling, and we've been working on that for a while, but it usually takes several years to get there, but we're determined. I think we're on a good course, and this indicates that we are doing that. So next I'd like Mr. Archer to give us an update on the Ermatinger House and the annual swimming pool maintenance.
Thanks, David. Commissioners, I want to let you know or remind you that every September we close the pool for we call it our maintenance closure. It's a major maintenance project time, and so our annual closure this year will be from September 3rd through the 29th, so basically most of September. It's a bit longer this year than it normally is. It's almost a week longer than normal, and that just is because of some of the nature of the projects that we need to get done. And I think, as you're well aware, over the last several years, we've been doing a lot of good upgrading, updating, maintenance, and refurbishing of the pool, and they've been very well received by our community. So this is just a continuation of that. So just to let you know, in case you get any questions about the pool being closed, and that's a typical thing. And then next, just a kind of a quick update on the Ermatinger House project, and then if you have any specific questions, by all means, please let me know. As you know, we have been the recipients of a community development block grant, also known as CDBG. We say that a lot. This is administered. It's federal funding administered through the county. The rules of those funds from the federal HUD money that we receive through that program, the rules are that the county must administer the actual construction contract, and we've known that from the beginning when we entered into the agreement and received the $140,000 towards the project. So we've been, the commission passed that agreement with the county a few meetings ago. We've recently met with the county staff as to kind of now moving forward on that. And our timeline is as such, and I want to make you aware of something in particular. The staff, between us and the county staff, have decided the appropriate way to do a contract would be in the best benefit, to most benefit the project, would be to do an RFQ, a request for qualifications, which is different than a normal bid. The reason we decided to do that is so that we can qualify the actual bidders. We want to be very selective about making sure that the contractor that ultimately works on the house is highly qualified to do such a unique project, very specialized historic preservation and restoration. The RFQ is what gives us the ability to do this. That requires there be a little bit more process involved, which is all going to be handled by the county. So they're doing a lot of the legwork on this, which is nice. And they're going to be asking, as if we would do the same type of thing here, they have to ask for an exemption from their board. They're going to be requesting that, and they'll hopefully they'll have that authorization to proceed in this process by the end of October. Once that's done, then we get back together and meet again, and then we actually begin to set up the steps of putting out the RFQ and going through the process. Most likely we'd be looking at that process taking place over the winter, looking at by the time a project is awarded and everything is in place, that we would hope to begin by probably mid to late spring, or even possibly early summer, depending on how that goes, of next year, so 2014. And that's about where we thought we would be in terms of the whole thing, so we're basically on target. And the nice thing too is that gives us the opportunity to get everything in order, like I said, find the right contractor to do this through this process. And it also gives us the time between now and then to continue to try to plug the last bit of the funding gap that we've got on the entirety of the project. And I don't have the numbers at my fingertips here, but I think we're roughly close to $150,000 short of the complete project. We have the majority of the funds, or quite a bit of that, and we are currently in the process of applying for numerous grants. We're aggressively pursuing some grant funding that we think we have a pretty good shot at. And we also have the funds that were allocated through our budget process in the current biennium. So we're looking pretty good. We've got a little bit of a gap yet to fill. I feel optimistically confident that we're going to be able to get that done and have that all in place by the time we do this bidding, and then have the project ready to go next summer. And should anything fall short in terms of the funding, we can adjust the bidding, and we can maybe take a portion of the project and set it aside for a later date until we have the funding and things of that nature. So we're well on our way to getting a restoration project done, and I'll be reporting back to you as more continues. I just wanted to make you very aware of this because there will be some public advertising that goes along with the exemption process that the Board of County Commissioners has to authorize. So didn't want you to get caught by surprise with any of that or anything like that. So
I wanted to ask, a request for qualifications, does it include the bid amount, or we don't have to go back again? I mean, we might identify groups that are qualified. Does that mean then we have to take those groups and then request a bid?
That's correct. Yes, you first qualify your bidders,
and then you request a bid from those.
And then you actually request the bids from those folks.
That's what I
That is
understood.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
The evaluation of the RFQs is county staff and city staff, or is it?
Good question. We haven't figured that out yet. We're first just seeking the authorization to do that, and then we'll determine that process.
Okay. My hope, of course, is it's not entirely county staff doing that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. What's that? Yeah.
So it'd probably be a committee of
yeah, I didn't fully understand your question, I
Sorry.
guess, but yes, it's both us and the county. And Christine was just talking about the fact that our project architect is very involved in the whole process.
So they will be part of it.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, yeah.
Great.
So I just didn't fully get that. And one thing I did want to mention is though the county administers the contract, we still have a lot of the input and direction on the specifications of the project. They're just basically administering the process.
How long is our consultants in that process through that RFP or through the RFQ process, or they stay on?
Well, we've just basically wrapped up their contract. What I'm hoping to do, and we may be bringing this back to the commission for an amendment to that existing agreement, is to extend that through the actual construction period, so that they'll help us with some oversight and that type of thing. But we're working on that.
I would like that. Yeah.
Well, that's most
Yeah.
likely what we're
Yeah.
we're
Okay.
working on that right now. As a matter of fact,
Great.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Great.
Any others? Okay. So moving on, Maureen Cole is going to give us a little reminder about the closure of the library coming up.
Good evening, Commissioners. How are you?
Very well.
So I wanted to remind you that tomorrow afternoon, the library will be closed for staff training. And this is time to coincide with Last Concert in the Park, because it benefits the park people to have a bunch of space, because that concert is so very big. So we'll be here for our training, and we're going to work on, we're going to discuss difficult situations ranging all the way from incivility to security problems. And the Gladstone Library Director, Irene Green, is going to come over and help facilitate that conversation. And then we're going to go to the end of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center so that my staff knows everything about what is offered out there. Because that, as you remember from last year, we did local historic things, and we're trying to build on our knowledge of Oregon City so that we're not Oregon City idiots when people come in and ask us questions. Well, because, you know, a lot of people live elsewhere, so it really helps to train people in that. And then I wanted to get in your consciousness the fact that the First Friday films are going to start really shortly, in like almost just 2 weeks away will be the first Friday in September. And our first film is going to be World Peace and Other Fourth Grade Achievements.
Sounds like another one of those left-wing movies to me.
Oh, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. And the left-wing Oregon City School District Superintendent, Larry Didway, will be our facilitator for that conversation. So I think it'll be very interesting. And that will be at the Pioneer Community Center. But heads up, October will be out at the end of the Oregon Trail. And it's going to be a little bit different documentary. It's a movie called Ride the Divide, and it's about the mountain biking trip that goes from Canada all the way down to Mexico along the Rockies. And Blaine Meyer and First City Cycle are co-sponsoring, which will be really, really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there was something else I wanted to tell you about. Dang it, it's on your list? I know. Get rid of the librarian. I know.
Give her an inch. You know.
Will the library be closed all day or just in the afternoon?
Just in the afternoon, but that means we're only open for 2 hours.
Oh, okay.
From 10 to
10 to
12.
12.
And yeah, hopefully we've put up enough announcements, but probably not. And then we'll be open on Labor Day coming up pretty soon, too.
Oh,
great.
Thank you.
I'll think of what I meant to tell you really
Hold
soon.
your open house for.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to remind you. Our public meeting, our open house, will be on September the 5th, Thursday, September the 5th at 6 p.m. right here. And we'll start with a presentation from the architect who's helping us with this portion of the planning. This is for the interior of the library, and they'll start with a presentation about what other libraries are doing and just get our juices flowing, and we'll just be creative.
A lot of this is still in the conceptual form, is it not?
Yeah, it's just to start talking about how we use our interior space, and then that helps us know what, next steps with the exterior design of the building.
What time did you say again?
6 p.m.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we'll have a survey that goes along with that eventually as well, short survey.
Thank you, Maureen.
You're welcome.
A question on behalf of my constituents.
Trying to get away,
If you're essentially closed for a full day, does that mean anybody that has late fees will have 1 day subtracted from their fees?
There will be nothing due tomorrow. We'll make it due on Friday. Does that help you out?
How many books do you have?
Okay, next item
I treated the library in that format, I will tell you that.
Next item I have to report on is some of you may know or may not that my office, I'm responsible for appointing a municipal prosecutor every few years, and our contract with our current municipal prosecutor is expiring. And so rather than just do a automatic reappointment, I decided this year to do an RFP. So we sent out an RFP, and we had 6 pretty solid responses to that. Mr. Horner, who's the Chief Deputy District Attorney, is assisting me and a panel of other staff in reviewing those. We have that group of 6 narrowed down to 4, and we're going to interview those folks pretty soon, and I'll keep you folks informed about any changes there. But we're looking at the entire proposal and really trying to see how do we get the most out of that service, because there are a lot of changes that are happening at the court, and there's some retirements and some of that's happening that's affecting it. We also have new software coming on that's affecting it, and the e-ticket program, which is saving a lot of staff time, is affecting it. So there are a lot of changes. It's dynamic, and the prosecutor is a key player in that. So I'll just I'll let you know more when I know more after the interviews before the appointment is final. Any questions on that? Okay. And then Chief Band has something, I think, to respond to a comment from one of you about a liquor licenses. I think I was away that meeting, but there were some concerns if there were too many or whatever. So he's going to address that.
So liquor licenses are granted by the state, not by us. We do make a recommendation for everyone that comes in. We get an application from them, from the state, asking for a recommendation. So what we do when we get one, we look at what they're proposing. We typically meet with whoever the business owner is going to be, run a background check on them. It's kind of a time for us to get a little FaceTime and talk about kind of how we like to do business in Oregon City, what our expectations are. And then we make a recommendation, which is generally a positive one for the business. I think it's a good question in light of especially some of the growth downtown. You know, what impact does that have on us? Surprisingly, the impact has actually been to kind of raise the bar downtown. There have been some really
That's a good one. That's really good.
But it really has kind of raised the bar. There's the crowd is different than if you went downtown 10 years ago. And I think that some of the businesses, there's at least one establishment I know that used to draw our services quite a bit that is no longer there. And I think that some of the businesses there, if they want to tap into some of the newer crowds that are coming downtown, they've got to elevate their game. That will keep me away from another pun. So natural selection, basically, I think it has been a positive. You know, a lot of the growth that has happened down there has been a positive. One of the things that most people probably don't know is after somebody has a license, the interaction between us and OLCC and then the police department and bar owners as well. Whenever there is a major incident, there's a big, huge fight, some kind of an assault, or every single DUI that happens, if it is traced over serving or something to a specific establishment, we have a state form that is filled out and put as part of the police report, and then a copy of that report goes to OLCC. And then they keep a track. You know, all establishments are going to have some of those at some point, but squeaky wheel gets the grease, and they end up intervening, doing stings and this kind of stuff based on the information that they get. And you know, we get a long ways just from Monday morning at 9 or 10 o'clock, knocking on the door, finding out who the owner is, and when there's a problem, we resolve a lot of issues that way. I think the biggest thing that we try and communicate is that the most dangerous thing for any establishment that serves alcohol is to not call us. That's where we get really alarmed is a business owner who's worried that, geez, if I call the police, there's a fight going on right now. If I call the police, then they're going to come down on us. So that's dangerous to us because then things are happening that are kind of in secret. So we've been successful that way, and I think if you have any questions, but that's really all the information I have for you on liquor licenses.
Thank you for doing that.
Sure.
Thank you, Jim. And next, our CET grant got approved by Metro. So that's
Good.
wonderful.
Great.
Mr. Conkle has an update, though, on what you're going to see happening with that moving forward.
Yeah, thank you, Commission. So the Metro Council did approve our construction excise tax grant request for the Willamette Falls Legacy project. We requested $400,000. They approved $300,000. The Sustainability Center out of Metro then filled the remainder with $100,000. So they're become a partner similar to the county and the bankruptcy trustee in the way that they brought those funds to the table. And so you may recall that about a month and a half ago, I brought you the Walker Macy contract and requested that you allow me to spend up to $75,000. So right now, Christina and myself are working with Jerry Uba over at Metro to finalize the CET grant language. It's essentially an intergovernmental agreement that gets signed by both the Commission and Metro, but we're fairly confident that we're going to get that completed and done. But until that is, I am going to go ahead and start. I've requested funding from the county per our agreement, from Metro per our agreement, as well as the bankruptcy trustee. So I'm going to, just letting you know, I'm going to start spending the money that was approved under the Walker Macy contract above that $75,000, realizing that I do need to bring you the IGA for the remaining $300,000, but we are working on that as diligently as we can to get that completed.
Questions about that? And also remind the Commission, Mayor Neely and I
had a quick question. We had some of our neighboring communities also made requests. Do you know how they fared?
West Lynn was fully funded for their work at the kind of the 43, 205, 40, area right there. I'm not sure what you call it. I'm not sure it has a name. Bolton. So that was actually funded, and they did see that as an opportunity to coordinate with the work that we're doing on our side of the river with what they're doing on their side of the river.
That's great.
Cool. And what I was going to report on is kind of a good follow-up for this. You recall that there was some doubt about a year ago after was after the county decided they were going to be partners, but before we actually saw any money coming forward. There was some debate about whether they were going to stay in the partnership, and then after they said, yeah, we're in, then there was some debate about whether they're in for 100,000 for 10 years like we were, or in for 100,000 and we're not sure about the future. So when Mayor Neely and I met with the county board chair, as we do now just about once a month, just to keep the relationship improving, he reiterated to us his understanding was that the county was in for the full 10 years. Well, of course, there's only 8 of those years left, but that still was a good commitment to hear. And so if you hear anything contrary to that, let me know. But from the top there, that's their position, and we were glad to hear that. And last but not least, John Lewis is going to ask for some direction. One of the commission items, a future agenda item, and I think it's been 6 months now, and a lot has changed in Public Works since this came up. So my guess is your reaction could be different. But one of you had wanted to know about some kind of oversight committee for Public Works. And so I've asked John to address that with you.
So I came on about a year ago as Public Works Director, and about 8 months ago, the suggestion that we needed an oversight committee came up. And I'm trying not to take that personally, but maybe I should. No. So I've contemplated this question for quite a while because it shows up on our agenda discussion every department head meeting. We've talked about it at that level, and we kind of circle back to what problem are we trying to serve. By the way, I'm considering this the Public Works Advisory Committee, PWAC. I just think it doesn't sound very good. It doesn't even sound good. But what problem are we trying to solve, or what benefits do you see the department gaining with a PWAC? And so in kind of considering this, I thought a little bit about my staff and our ability to kind of cover yet another committee. We cover about 16 committees right now. And not that we're staffing all those, but we attend those meetings regularly. Several of them meet monthly, so that those meetings add up over time. And we're pretty accessible. There's about 5 staff that I think would be available, or not necessarily available, but be well suited to attend or to staff a Public Works Advisory Committee. And so we're stretched pretty thin, I guess, is one point. And so I just wanted to, ask those questions. We've got the committee meetings that we go to already. We also go to several professional groups as well that often have public involvement. We try to attend those meetings as often as we can, and when the agendas look right. We're very available via. People can come to the counter and ask for the Public Works Director or the City Engineer. We try to make ourselves as available as we can through email. We try to give good commission updates. And we think our website's pretty comprehensive as well. And we've got online requests for services. So there's just a lot of things that we do in the department that take a fair amount of resources to get done. And so to have another committee is just something that I'm not quite sure how to cover, and I'm kind of wondering, again, is there a problem that we're trying to solve there, or a benefit that you think we're missing out on? And so I guess the question is, do we have, City Commission consensus that we should bring this back as a work session item? And if not, I'd like to avoid that.
Commissioner Ross?
I would like to bring it back because I think that we could have avoided some of the initial expense of a master plan that was done if we had community input. And
master plan?
For the design up here.
Yes.
For the Public Works property. I think if we had public input, that there could have been some work that was avoided that way. And I really do think it's important to have public input on, just like we do on the other committees. I really do think it's, or departments, excuse me. So, I know
we have TAC, and we do the CIC, and we do, a lot of other committees where we provide public works support.
Would those things come up under those?
I believe they would. Yeah, under my direction, they would. Yeah, we would take those kinds of questions before. Maybe not the TAC if it's not transportation related, and I'm not sure the Public Works Center is transportation related.
Right. So where would that
come up?
The CIC,
I think, actually, the CIC discussed that a fair amount.
Okay.
When at that time, it was discussed many times at the public through the city commission as well, and so it's back to your body and how much authority do you have. Any kind of committee would be an advisory committee, and there's a whole other slew of concerns about tapping into our community for yet another committee commitment.
If we took away the looking at having this PWAC that you're talking about, could we maybe emphasize public works problems more under one of those other committees? So make that more well-known.
Public works problems.
Well, not problems, but public works things that we would be considering.
Like projects?
Like what?
Like projects? Are you
Projects.
thinking larger infrastructure projects?
Right, fleet changes.
Sidewalks.
All of those things, that could we make it more public as to where people would go to speak about those things?
I think we could, yeah. I mean,
Just maybe even on the website?
We'd have to ask the committee chairs about their willingness to do that.
Mhm.
The CIC has a public works agenda item on their agenda, and usually they don't come with a lot of questions, but I come with a lot of updates.
Mhm.
So, and it's a long time ago since we did the Public Works Master Plan, but
Right.
my suspicion is that would have been one of those things on that list.
Mhm. But that would work fine for me if we could just make it very, very visible.
Okay.
In another spot.
I'll see if I can't work with the CIC chair to make sure we
That'd be
work on
great.
those issues.
Okay, thank you.
That's the extent of my report this evening, Your
Okay.
Honor.
I do, before I go into my formal report, I do want to congratulate John Lewis, because when he came on, he began looking at various sites for the Public Works facility. I also noticed there was a tremendous response in terms of citizens' comments of where they felt there would be crosswalks that go in, and some of those rapidly went in after John Lewis took his position. The other observation I have is the crosswalks that do go in, the critical ones, they now have stop signs associated with those crosswalks that indicate you stop for pedestrians. That is, they're far more visible than they were, in my opinion. I'm going to make a comment. I had a citizen come up and was concerned about the ducks crossing from the pond near the Hagen Supermarket, but near the church, Trinity Lutheran Church, and he said there'd be ought to be signage, and I said I thought there was. Well, I noticed if you're going if you're going west on Myers, there is a duck sign. If there was one going the other direction, it's gone or it's covered by vegetation. And so I wanted to relay that concern to you. But
we're very responsive, and you don't have to have a committee to.
That's really John. That's coming to the point. I think you've been really responsive to comments that have been coming from the public, and it's intended to be a compliment. I just wanted to put the duck's perspective in there too.
Sometimes, actually, in my experience, committees mean that it's a slower response.
Yeah,
but,
and that comes to actually now going into my report. We still have positions on the Traffic Advisory Committee from the very beginning of the year that are not filled. And I think we still have 3 of them. TAC. Two. Okay, 2. I guess that's right. Yeah, that's right. We
Two
made
TAC members that are what?
We don't have a full committee.
Oh, you're right. We
Traffic
got 2
advisory.
vacancies. Yeah.
Yeah, and so traffic seems to be a big concern, but nobody seems to be doing much about getting on those committees. And this surprises me because it hasn't been the case. All our committees, I believe, are filled with that exception. So the thing is, we've got to get the information out to those, particularly those people that think they have some solutions regarding some of their traffic issues, to get them to get on our tack.
And we just amended those bylaws to include people that are in zip codes that are outside the city. I don't remember the zip codes, but they're the same as, I think, is it the Planning Commission that allows? One of the other committees, we matched their bylaws that allows membership outside the city. So
BRAC does that. Maybe that's what you're
BRAC,
talking about.
yeah. Thanks.
And of course, the library board also has outside of the city membership. The other thing, we have created a sign co update community advisory team, and I'm going to make those. I've already made the appointments. I've actually signed the letters, but I'm going to announce them. Sandy Burley, representing the sign industry. Ethan Erickson, Main Street, Oregon City. Mark Evans, institutional. Institutional means faith-based organizations and schools. Melissa Hayden, development and business interest. Zach Hengen from the Planning Commission. Ed LaPlante, representing the Chamber of Commerce. Bob LaSalle from the Neighborhood Association Civic Improvement Council. Tom O'Brien from the Neighborhood Association Civic Improvement Council. Kathleen Sinclair, a city resident. Amy Wilhite, a city representative. And Daryl Winand, also representing the business community. I think it's a really good balance between business interest, the sign industry, and the residents as well. They closed the applications. Closed on Friday, as I recall.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's actually the full slate. That's the positions we had available. I had a couple questions raised about other people being interested. We have closed them, so I don't think we'll reopen them again. A few other things that I wanted to mention. Maureen Cole mentioned the movie series. Of course, Parks and Recreation still has its movie series. A couple weeks ago, they had to cancel the movie because of weather. There were some resilient people out there waiting for the movie to start. They weren't really disappointed because we had this tremendous gray sky and this break at the horizon, and we had this magnificent sunset. And everybody, because you're out in the open field, you could see the complete horizon rainbow going across, and you could see part of the second rainbow, and everybody there was thrilled with the experience of getting that view. And we tell them to go home, but it's been made up for.
Was
we
there
have
translation provided?
Huh?
Was there translation provided?
How do you translate a rainbow? How do you translate a sunset? They were even with a great spirit in their soul after they saw that. And when all this translation, it exceeded cultures. And the movie that was actually scheduled this Friday, we're going to have a double feature, as I understand it.
Oh my gosh!
Which means the kids aren't probably going to get to bed till 1 a.m.
What time does Goonies start? That's all that I care about.
It does.
Get them on schedule.
Okay.
The best thing to do is be there by earlier than 8:30, I'd suggest. So there will be a double feature.
Very cool.
And we also have our final concerts in the park. One of the most popular items for our concerts in the park is Johnny Limbo and the Lugnuts. They usually end up for our concert. That's tomorrow night. The movie's on Friday night. Oh, movies at Westerly, and then, of course, the concerts in the park at the library park. Attended a workforce group that was set up by Dean Perini at the Clackamas Community College. They are going through this review of what they need to provide the community, and they've had various people from the community working on this. They've gone through a major polling effort throughout the community to pull this information together, and a lot of ideas were expressed at that particular workforce conference. Looking forward to seeing what they need at the community college to support the needed workforce needs. We also, last meeting I appointed myself and Commissioner Polly to be representatives on the Willamette Falls Legacy Group, and Carol, myself, Metro Councilor Carlotta Collette, Tony Conkle, Elizabeth. I do that, Robertson. Oh, help me out. I do that with your name all the time. Robertson Gardner went along with a representative from Colgan Owens, and Mrs. Wyoming. I don't have any trouble with that name. And were invited there by the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde to a meeting. We had a discussion with them. They seemed to be very interested in the project. They will be going through their own process as we do. They will be setting up a study session of their own to discuss their involvement in this particular project, and then come to their own council at one point for decision making. But they also want to take, as a council, they want to take a tour of the site, and so Mr. Conkle is actually organizing a tour of the site for the Confederated Tribes. And it was a great meeting. I think there was it was indicated to us there might be some slowness on how people responded in the meeting. Actually, the dialogue went very, very well, I thought, and everybody there on the council there seemed keenly interested in the project. Carol, do you want to add something to that?
Sure.
And you can go ahead and give your reports on anything, but I'll just lead you in as the first speaker and maybe just build on the meeting we had.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. Well, we made the trip down to Grand Ronde. It was a nice drive down there. They seem to really understand, and they spoke about all the 4 values, and there was, consensus there. And they understand our commitment and all of our partners' commitment to the 4 values and having the public access and having their story told there and the historical and cultural interpretation. So it was positive. I really felt like as partners, we had a consensus there to move forward.
Yeah.
It was a good meeting.
Before you go on to other points, I was just going to comment. One thing they made very clear, and we knew this beforehand, is the falls is located on the ceded territories of the Grand Ronde, and they made it very clear that where various tribes would use that particular resource for fishing and so forth, they were invited by the tribes of the region to do so. As part of our public process, we did send letters to, I believe it was 4 other tribes that were in the general area, but in the letter that we send to the Grand Ronde, we made it very clear that we recognize their sovereignty of the site, and they made it clear that that was extremely important to us, and we recognize that importance. I just wanted to make that comment.
Yeah, they were a gracious host, and we were really glad to have the opportunity to go down there and meet with them. Yes, Tony.
Yes, go ahead, John.
I was just going to, if we were done with that conversation, I just wanted to add something about the TAC, or the sign code committee that you appointed.
Okay, go ahead.
That all of you may not have gotten to it yet, but you received an email from Mr. O'Brien this morning concerning the memberships that the mayor appointed here tonight. I had a discussion with the mayor about it. We talked about, and the concern was that there wasn't a representative from code enforcement on the committee. Staff's going to be working with code enforcement. It's staff to staff. This is a committee made up of citizens and business owners in the chamber and Main Street. So that was the reason for that. We will certainly have those conversations with code enforcement as we go through this process. The other concern was that there wasn't an actual business owner per se, but when we had a discussion with the mayor, we have the chamber, Main Street, sign companies. So I just, we're kicking this public engagement off. I just want to be clear that we heard the concern. We had a discussion about it. The mayor was comfortable with the representation of businesses through the groups that have been put on the committee. We're also doing public engagement as we go through this, and we'll be having those conversations. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify that as we're kicking this off, because you all have it in your email box.
And I would make a point. Code enforcement is an entity that enforces the codes that they have. We don't want to have an entity there that's trying to defend the current sign code. I don't say that necessarily would happen. We want community input on what the sign code should be. And sometimes to invite the enforcement agency into the discussion sometimes tilts it a little bit in a way that would probably affect the kind of free discussion that would happen otherwise. So I don't think it's appropriate to have code enforcement there. Okay, Carol, I'm sorry. Back to you.
No problem. A Main Street report seems to kind of be my standard thing now because there's so much going on. John Southgate is leading the search committee for the MSOC manager, and the process is going to be very open. So on that committee, it'll be open to business owners and to people that express interest that are willing to put the time commitment into the whole interview process and going through everything, which is pretty time consuming. But everybody's pretty happy about it and very committed to having it be an open, inclusive process. And then also, Sherry Stewart, the Main Street coordinator for Oregon, she works with all the Main Street programs in Oregon. She is also going to be on that search committee, and she is going to dedicate her time to helping us with that, as well as hosting a Main Street program review. So it is great to have all of her resources and expertise to kind of, go through our program and make a good program even better. So this is a good opportunity to kind of hit the reset button and go forward from here and have input.
Very good. Other reports?
Go ahead.
Mr. Mum.
I was going to say, I was at the chamber this morning for their Good Morning Oregon City, and Ed LaPlante stated that he was going to be on this committee and was seeking input from all the businesses there. So I think he's going to do a good job of representing everybody. And while I was there, they were talking about the Antique Fair, and that is coming up Sunday. And it is going to be at the end of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center, 8 o'clock. See you there.
Mine is only a question, and that is, I've recently run across something in another local government that talks about emergency training, and I want to know if we've got this covered. Group lottery winnings.
Oh. That's a good one.
A mass exodus of employees that have won a huge amount of money.
We don't have that problem.
We're not that lucky. The odds are pretty high. We would like that problem. I think the odds were better. It is part of the emergency plan.
Wow, that's interesting.
I've never heard of that.
So we might want to think about that.
We are participating in the October 17th shake-up, so you could that could be lottery winning.
Yeah.
HR after gambling and
And you may want to, ban group lottery purchases. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't think we can do
That's
that.
interesting. No, that's very interesting.
Yeah. We can make good use of
The
it.
entire police department, or
Yeah.
wow,
Well, it
that's
would be a
interesting.
problem.
It would very much be a problem.
Well, is there anything else